Imagine a world where a destitute orphan can rise to become an emperor, a world where the fate of an entire nation is turned by the hands of one man. This isn't a fairy tale, it's the true story of the Hongwu emperor, a peasant who defied the odds to establish one of history's greatest dynasties. Join us as we uncover the incredible journey of Zhu Yuanzhang, from his humble beginnings to his legendary rise as the founder of China's imperial Ming Dynasty. Stay tuned for a tale of resilience, strategy, and power that reshaped the course of history. Let us journey back in time to 14th century China, an era marked by turbulence and the decline of a once powerful dynasty. As the Mongol-led Yuan Dynasty crumbles, the vast empire is on the brink of monumental change. In this period of chaos and uncertainty, a new leader emerges from the most unlikely of places, setting the stage for one of the most dramatic transformations in Chinese history. Discover the humble origins of Zhu Yuanzhang, born Zhu Chongba in 1328, in the impoverished region of Zhongli County, present-day Fengyang, Anhui Province. Growing up as a peasant in a tenant farming family, he faced extreme hardship. His early years were marked by devastating famine and personal tragedy, which led to the loss of his parents and most siblings by the time he was just 16. To survive, Zhu became a monk at the Huangjue Monastery near Fengyang, and later a wandering mendicant, begging for food in and around Hefei. In a land without established authority, his struggle for survival laid the foundations of his extraordinary destiny. Zhu Chongba's resolve was shaped by his grandfather, a veteran of the Southern Song Army and Navy who fought against the Mongol invasion. His grandfather's tales of battle and resistance deeply influenced Zhu. After the tragic loss of his family, Zhu, in a state of destitution, turned to the spiritual path his brother had once pledged to follow. He joined the Huangjue Temple as a novice monk. However, fate had more trials in store for him. Due to financial difficulties at the monastery, he was soon compelled to leave, pushing him once again into the uncertainties of life. In the ensuing years, Zhu Chongba's life took a turn as he wandered as a beggar, enduring the same struggles faced by many during the waning years of the Yuan Dynasty. His journey through hardship gave him a deep understanding of the plight of the common people. After about 3 years of this nomadic life, he returned to the monastery, remaining there until he was around 24. It was during these formative years among the Buddhist monks that Zhu acquired his literacy, learning to read and write, skills that would later play a crucial role in his journey to leadership. The monastery where Zhu Chongba resided was ravaged and destroyed by an army sent to quell a local rebellion in 1352. This event marked a pivotal turning point for Zhu. Embracing a common practice of the era, where a change of name signified a new life chapter or ambition, he adopted the name Zhu Yuanzhang. This significant transformation propelled him to join one of the many insurgent groups rebelling against the Mongol-led Yuan Dynasty. His ascent within the ranks was swift, leading to his role as a commander. Zhu's force eventually merged with the Red Turban Rebellion, part of the White Lotus Society, which combined elements of Buddhism and Manichaeism. Zhu, revered as a protector of Confucian values among the Han Chinese, quickly rose as a prominent leader in the fight to overthrow the Yuan Dynasty rule. In 1356, Zhu's military campaign achieved a significant victory with the capture of Nanjing, which soon became the headquarters of his operations and, eventually, the capital of the Ming Dynasty. Under Zhu's administration, Nanjing became renowned for its effective governance, attracting a massive influx of people from less stable regions. The city's population is believed to have grown tenfold in just a decade. Meanwhile, the Yuan Dynasty was crumbling due to internal conflicts, and its control over the Yangtze River Valley weakened. By 1358, rebel groups, including Zhu's, had gained control of central and southern China. Amidst this, the Red Turbans fragmented, with Zhu, leading a smaller faction, known as Wu, around 1360. A larger rival faction controlling the central Yangtze River Valley was led by Chen Yuliang, a formidable adversary and one of the most prominent rebel leaders against the Yuan Dynasty. As the self-proclaimed Duke of Wu, Zhu Yuanzhang found himself under the nominal rule of Han Lin-er, the Longfeng Emperor of the Song Dynasty, who was the son of Han Shantong. Han Shantong was a significant figure in the early stages of the Red Turban Rebellion against the Yuan Dynasty. A leader of the White Lotus Society, he played a crucial role in the uprising, advocating for the restoration of the Song Dynasty. His son, Han Lin-er, was subsequently installed as a puppet emperor by the rebel leaders, symbolizing their intent to overthrow the Yuan rule and restore the Song lineage. During this period, Zhu's ability to attract and utilize skilled individuals became evident. Among them was Zhu Sheng, who famously counseled him to build high walls, stock up rations, and to delay claiming kingship of Nanjing. This was part of a strategy to strengthen his position before officially declaring himself as a king or emperor, a pivotal step in his rise to power. Zhu Yuanzhang now stood at the forefront of the resistance against the Mongol rule, yet he faced competition from other power contenders. Prominent among them were Chen Yuliang and Zhang Shicheng. Chen Yuliang declared himself the emperor of the Han Dynasty, ruling from Wuchang in Hubei province, nearly 650 kilometers west of Shanghai, and exerting control over a vast swathe of central China. Meanwhile, in the east, Zhang Shicheng, who proclaimed himself Prince Cheng of the Zhou Dynasty, held sway over Pingjiang, now known as Suzhou in Jiangsu province, a region adjacent to the east coast and encompassing Nanjing. In 1363, a pivotal moment unfolded on Lake Poyang, located south of the Yangtze River in northern Jiangxi province. A massive naval battle erupted between the formidable fleet of war junks commanded by Chen Yuliang and Zhu Yuanzhang's smaller yet nimble barges. After 3 intense days, the battle culminated in Chen Yuliang's death and the decisive defeat of his fleet. The following year, Zhu's forces seized Wuchang, Chen's stronghold, and swiftly conquered the provinces of Hubei, Hunan, to the west of Jiangxi, and Jiangxi itself. Riding this wave of victories, Zhu Yuanzhang declared himself the Prince of Wu in 1364, marking a significant step in his ascent to power. After Chen Yuliang's demise, the situation rapidly escalated. In 1367, Han Lin-er, the Song pretender, felt besieged by Mongol forces at his base in Chuzhou. Seeking safety, he fled to Nanjing, Zhu Yuanzhang's stronghold. However, during this journey, escorted by one of Zhu's men, Han Lin-er met his end, drowning under suspicious circumstances, possibly orchestrated by Zhu himself. That same year saw the capture of Zhang Shicheng, who, upon being brought to Nanjing, chose to end his own life. This period also marked the decline of other rebel forces. One notable rebel, Fang Guozhen, who had initially challenged the Mongols through piracy along the coast, surrendered to Zhu. He was honored and pensioned, yet stripped of any real power. In contrast, Chen Yuting, a staunch Yuan loyalist governing Fujian province on the southeast coast, was captured and executed in Nanjing. With the southern region now under control, Zhu Yuanzhang dispatched his generals, Shu Da and Chang Yuchun, to the northern territories. In early 1368, seizing the moment of triumph, Zhu declared himself the emperor of the newly established Ming Dynasty, choosing Nanjing as the capital. He adopted Hongwu, meaning vastly martial, as his reign title. While he is commonly known as the Hongwu Emperor, the title Taizu, signifying the dynasty's founder, is also fittingly used to refer to him. The Ming forces tasked with conquering the north achieved remarkable success. Provinces like Shandong and Henan swiftly pledged allegiance to the Ming authority. By August 1368, the Ming army had marched into Dadu, the Yuan Dynasty's capital, which was later renamed Beijing. Facing the unstoppable advance of the Ming troops, the Mongol Emperor Shundi retreated to Inner Mongolia. Although Mongol influence lingered, this marked the historical end of the Yuan Dynasty. The Ming army's momentum continued, swiftly bringing the northwest under control, followed by the southwest regions of Sichuan and Yunnan. By 1382, Zhu Yuanzhang's dream of a unified China under the Ming Dynasty was finally realized. As the Hongwu emperor aged, his rule became marked by cruelty, paranoia, and irrationality. Contrary to expectations, he didn't eliminate Mongol influence. Instead, he modeled his court after the Mongols, solidifying the emperor's absolute power, a trend that persisted throughout the dynasty. One notable political strategy he employed was bestowing principalities upon all his sons. Officially, this move was justified as a precaution against potential Mongol invasions, empowering his sons to support the regular armies with military might. However, underlying this decision was Hongwu's desire to retain direct control over the empire through his sons' territories, ensuring his influence extended across the land. Under Hongwu's rule, there was a dramatic transformation in the government structure. He replaced the Mongol and non-Chinese officials, who were dominant during the Yuan Dynasty, with Han Chinese bureaucrats. Hongwu's policy towards the civil service exams, which selected officials based on their education in literature and philosophy, was inconsistent. Initially, he brought back these exams, then scrapped them, only to reinstate them later. The exams focused on classical texts, particularly the 4 books and commentaries by Zhu Xi, as set by the Yuan in 1313. This shift signified a comeback for Confucian scholars in government roles, restoring them to power after being marginalized under the Yuan rule. Hongwu's rule was marked by a strong drive to eliminate Mongol influences. This led to the prohibition of things he deemed barbarian, like certain Mongol-style clothes and names. However, what was considered barbarian was often unclear and left to Hongwu's judgment, resulting in random bans on various clothing styles and names. His regime also targeted and dismantled buildings and palaces linked to the Yuan dynasty. Despite these actions to reject Mongol culture, it's interesting to note that many of Hongwu's own administrative systems were actually modeled after the Yuan dynasty's methods, such as setting up community schools in villages for basic education. The legal system established by Hongwu was marked by severe methods of execution, including flaying and slow slicing. His general, Chang Yuchun, was notorious for massacres in Shandong and Hunan as reprisals against resistance. Hongwu's growing paranoia over potential rebellions led to the execution of dissenting advisors and the outlawing of influential groups like the Manichaeans and White Lotus sect. He reportedly ordered a massacre in Nanjing over a disrespectful comment. After a lightning strike hit his palace in 1380, Hongwu momentarily halted the killings, fearing divine retribution. However, in the 1390s, further mass executions occurred due to an alleged rebellion plot by General Lan Yu. Zhu Yuanzhang's reign was marked not only by strategic brilliance, but also by a relentless and often brutal approach to maintaining power. This unforgiving side of Zhu's rule is starkly illustrated in the infamous case of Hu Weiyong, a tale that underscores the extreme measures he was willing to take against perceived threats to his authority. Hu Weiyong was a key figure in the early Ming Dynasty, rising to prominence as a trusted advisor of the Hongwu emperor. Initially a military clerk, he climbed the ranks with the support of his relative Li Shanchang, eventually becoming the Grand Chancellor. This position made him the head of civil administration, essentially the prime minister of the Ming Dynasty. However, in 1380, Hu's fortune dramatically changed. Accused of plotting to overthrow the emperor, he was arrested and executed on February 12, 1380, alongside Censor-in-Chief Chen Ning. This accusation painted a picture of a vast conspiracy involving Hu, parts of the army, and even foreign powers like the Mongols and Japanese, aiming to assassinate the emperor. The aftermath was brutal. Zhu Yuanzhang responded with a merciless purge, executing all 70 members of Hu Weiyong's family, including distant relatives, their associates, and even their associates' relatives. In total, an estimated 30,000 to 40,000 people were killed in this sweeping act of retribution. Even Li Shanchang, a key contributor to the Ming Empire's founding, was executed along with his family in 1390. The purge eventually ended after it was argued that accusations against such high-ranking officials were baseless, given their already established power and honor. Following this massacre, he abolished the chancellor position in his government. This decision led to some controversy. While Hongwu wanted to have more control, some people argued that not having a chancellor meant there was no one to balance the emperor's power, which could be a problem if a future emperor wasn't capable. With the establishment of the Ming Dynasty, Hongwu bestowed noble titles upon his military officers, recognizing their contributions with symbolic titles and stipends. Among those honored was the family of Mu Ying, a loyal and trusted general who had played a crucial role in Zhu's military campaigns and the founding of the dynasty. However, to curb the potential abuse of power, Hongwu implemented specific regulations aimed at keeping these newly titled nobles in check. This approach was part of his broader strategy to maintain control and order in the newly formed dynasty. Hongwu, coming from a peasant background, made land reforms a key part of his rule. He was well aware of how peasants suffered under the exploitation by wealthy landlords and scholar officials. To combat this, he introduced two systems: the yellow records and fish scale records. These were designed to ensure fair land taxes and protect the peasants' rights to their land. However, despite these reforms, the bureaucrats who were supposed to help the peasants often became part of the problem. They accumulated wealth and status, sometimes becoming moneylenders or getting involved in gambling. As a result, they expanded their own estates, often at the cost of the peasants. This led to many peasants losing their lands and having to work as tenants on the lands they once owned, or they had to leave their homes to find jobs elsewhere. Hongwu also focused on improving how land was distributed to peasants. He promoted moving people from crowded areas to less populated regions. A notable example is Hongtong County, where many residents were relocated to other provinces. They initially gathered under a large pagoda tree in Hongtong, Shaanxi. This tree later became a symbol of one's ancestral roots in certain regions. To further support farming, Hongwu also invested in public projects like building irrigation systems and dikes. Additionally, he worked to reduce the burden of forced labor on peasants, a significant issue at the time, thereby easing a major challenge they faced. In 1370, he introduced a major policy to support young farmers in Hunan and Anhui. When they reached adulthood, they were allocated land, and these land titles couldn't be transferred to landlords, preventing them from accumulating more land. Hongwu also made a rule that any new land that was cultivated wouldn't have to pay taxes and could be kept by the farmer who worked on it. This policy was extremely successful and led to a significant increase in farmland by 1393, more than in any previous Chinese dynasty. Besides these agricultural reforms, Hongwu also focused on the environment. He planted 50 million trees around Nanjing and repaired canals and irrigation systems, which helped repopulate the northern regions. He made significant changes to how rural China was organized. He set up a system where communities were divided into units called li, each consisting of 110 households. The 10 largest households in each li took turns leading the community. The rest of the households were grouped into smaller units called jia. This whole setup was known as the Lijia system. It had two main jobs: collecting taxes and finding people for labor to meet the local government's needs. Village elders also played a key role. They kept an eye on what was happening in the community, reported any crimes, and made sure everyone focused on their farming work. This system was a crucial part of Hongwu's plan to keep rural areas well-ordered and productive. During Hongwu's reign, he kept the household registration system from the previous Yuan Dynasty, called Zhu Yuanzhang. This system divided households into different categories based on the type of work they did. The main categories were civilian, military, craftsman, and salt worker households. Each category determined what kind of labor the family was responsible for. For example, military households had to provide a soldier and other support for the army. These categories, especially military, craftsmen, and salt workers, were usually passed down in families, and it was rare for a family to change to a civilian category. There were also smaller categories like physician or scholar households, based on specific professions. Another category was entertainer households, but unfortunately, these households often faced discrimination. Under Hongwu's rule, anyone who wanted to travel had to have a luyin, which was a travel permit given by local officials. Also, travelers were expected to let their neighbors know about their plans. Hongwu's government strictly banned people from moving around the country without permission, and those who broke this rule could be sent into exile. This strict travel policy was enforced throughout Hongwu's reign. It shows how much the government controlled where people could go, all in the name of keeping order and stability in the empire. On September 24, 1392, Emperor Zhu Yuanzhang introduced a strict law about hairstyles. He ordered that all men should grow their hair long. The Mongol style of shaving part of the forehead and keeping strands of hair was banned. The consequences for not following this rule were harsh. If someone got their hair cut in the Mongol style, both the person getting the haircut and the barber, as well as their sons, would face castration. Their families would also be exiled and sent away to distant border areas. This law was Zhu Yuanzhang's way of getting rid of the Mongol hairstyle and making sure everyone followed the traditional Han Chinese way of keeping long hair. It was a part of his larger effort to shift the culture and strengthen the identity of the Ming Dynasty. Facing ongoing threats from the northern Yuan, Emperor Hongwu reconsidered the traditional Confucian idea that placed the military lower than the scholar officials. He kept a strong army, and in 1384, he reorganized it using the Weisuo system, which was like a guard battalion structure. This system divided the military into units of 5,600 men, which were then broken down into smaller groups, like battalions and companies. By 1393, there were about 1.2 million soldiers in the Weisuo system. These soldiers were given land to farm, and their military roles were passed down within families. This approach was similar to the Fubing system used in the Sui and Tang dynasties. It aimed to keep the army ready for battle, while also ensuring the soldiers could support themselves through farming. In the Ming Dynasty, soldiers usually trained in their local areas. When there was a war, the Ministry of War would call soldiers from all over the empire and assign commanders to lead them. After the war ended, the army was split up into smaller groups and the soldiers would go back to their own districts. The commanders would also give up their power and return control to the government. This way, military leaders couldn't become too powerful. For big military campaigns, the person in charge was usually a civilian official, not a military general. This ensured that the government kept control over the army and helped maintain a balance of power in the empire. Although Emperor Hongwu wanted to keep most of the power to himself, he knew he couldn't manage the entire vast Ming Empire alone. So, he set up a group called the Grand Secretaries. This group was like a cabinet, and slowly started to take over the duties of the prime minister, a role Hongwu had previously abolished. Over time, these grand secretaries became very influential, even though they didn't seem very powerful from the outside. They were respected and trusted, acting as a link between the emperor and other government officials. This made them an important stabilizing force in the empire's government. Emperor Hongwu was cautious about the role of eunuchs, who were men castrated at a young age and often used in royal courts due to their inability to have children, which was thought to make them more loyal. He recognized the damaging influence eunuchs had in previous dynasties and took steps to limit their power. He significantly reduced their numbers and restricted their roles, forbidding them from handling documents and insisting on their illiteracy. He even executed those who involved themselves in state affairs, clearly stating eunuchs must have nothing to do with the administration. This policy, however, was short-lived among his successors, as evidenced by the Yongle emperor's use of eunuchs in his coup. Moreover, Hongwu was adamant that relatives of his consorts should not hold court positions, a practice largely upheld by later emperors, preventing potential issues from empresses' families. During the Hongwu era, the Jinyue, or embroidered uniform guard, was created by Emperor Hongwu himself. Originally his personal bodyguards, they evolved into a formidable secret police force. They had special powers to bypass the usual legal processes, allowing them to arrest, interrogate, and punish anyone, including high-ranking officials and members of the imperial family. A striking example of their power was in 1393, when Jiang Huan, the chief of Jinyue, accused General Lan Yu of plotting a rebellion. This led to a large-scale crackdown, resulting in the execution of around 15,000 people, including entire families. Hongwu's numerous purges and the abolishment of traditional governmental posts led to a significant transformation of China's historical governance structure. These actions served to substantially enhance the emperor's absolute power, marking a departure from centuries-old practices and centralizing authority significantly in the imperial seat. The legal reforms under his reign resulted in the creation of the Da Ming Lu, or the Code of the Great Ming, which stands as a significant achievement of his era. Efforts to draft this code began as early as 1364. Hongwu dedicated considerable effort to ensure the code was comprehensive and clear, aiming to prevent officials from exploiting any loopholes. This legal code particularly emphasized family relations and improved upon the Tang dynasty's treatment of slaves, who were previously regarded akin to domestic animals. Under the Ming Code, both slaves and free citizens received legal protection. As his reign went on, Emperor Hongwu moved from using the Daming Lu to a much stricter set of laws called the Dagao, or Great Announcements. These new laws made punishments harsher, with over 1,000 different crimes leading to the death penalty. The focus was mainly on the government and its officials, with very strict punishments for corruption and embezzlement. Interestingly, the Dagao even allowed regular people to arrest officials they thought were committing crimes. These laws also tried to control social behavior, imposing heavy penalties if people didn't follow new lifestyle rules. This included detailed laws on what decorations commoners could have in their homes. Overall, this shift marked a big increase in the strictness and reach of the legal system under Hongwu. Emperor Hongwu's approach to the economy was shaped by Confucian scholars, who saw merchants as harmful to society. He agreed with this view and focused on agriculture as the main source of the country's wealth. This was different from the previous Song dynasty, which relied a lot on trade and merchants for money. As a result, the Ming dynasty's economy was mainly based on farming. Hongwu aimed to create self-sufficient farming communities, believing that a society based on agriculture would be more stable and prosperous than one focused on trade and commerce. Despite Hongwu's bias against merchants, the trading sector experienced significant growth during his reign. This increase in commerce was propelled by the expansion of industry across the empire. Factors like poor soil quality and overpopulation in certain regions compelled many to abandon agriculture and venture into trading to earn their livelihoods. This highlighted an unintentional boost in trade despite the emperor's personal prejudices. During the Hongwu era, paper money was brought back into use. However, there was a big problem with how its value was managed. Emperor Hongwu didn't fully understand how inflation worked and issued too much paper money as rewards. This caused too much money to be in circulation, which made the money's value drop significantly. By 1425, the value of this paper currency had fallen to just 1/70th of what it was originally worth. To fix this economic issue, the government had to go back to using copper coins to stabilize the economy and bring back value to the currency. At the Guozijian, or Imperial Academy, Hongwu emphasized a diverse curriculum that included law, mathematics, calligraphy, equestrianism, and archery, along with the traditional study of Confucian classics. These subjects were also integral to the imperial examinations. Hongwu introduced archery and equestrianism into the exams in 1370, echoing Emperor Xiaozong of Song's earlier inclusion of these skills for non-military officials. Additionally, the area around Nanjing's Meridian Gate was designated for archery practice. Hongwu, along with the Yongle Emperor, modeled their cavalry-based army on the Yuan military, incorporating Mongols into both the army and officialdom. Emperor Hongwu used written essays as a way to teach discipline and order to the people in China. He put these essays up in villages all over the country. They were clear warnings about the serious consequences of bad behavior. Some of his well-known writings from the 1380s are the Great Warnings or Grand Pronouncements and the Ancestral Injunctions. He also wrote the Six Maxims, which later had an impact on the sacred edict by the Kangxi Emperor. These writings show Hongwu's style of ruling. He focused a lot on moral behavior and making sure people followed the government's rules. In 1384, Hongwu started a project to translate and put together Islamic astronomical charts. This work was led by Ma Xiaoyi, a Muslim astronomer, and Wu Bozong, a Chinese scholar official. Their efforts resulted in the Hui Lifa, or Muslim system of calendrical astronomy. This book was a major achievement in Chinese astronomy. It was special because it combined Islamic astronomical knowledge with Chinese methods. It was published several times in China until the early 18th century, showing how open the Ming Dynasty was to scientific ideas from different cultures. His legal code included a rule that required Mongol and Central Asian Semu Muslim women and men to marry Han Chinese. This was stated in Article 122 of the Code of the Great Ming. Along with this, Hongwu showed some openness to different religions. For example, he ordered the construction of several mosques in Nanjing, Yunnan, Guangdong, and Fujian provinces. He even put up inscriptions in these mosques that praised Muhammad, the Islamic prophet. One mosque he rebuilt was the Jinjue Mosque in Nanjing. Because of this, a lot of Hui people, who are Chinese Muslims, moved to Nanjing during his time as emperor. Hongwu also established a foreign policy of restraint, designating certain countries as nations without conquest. This policy listed 15 countries, including Japan, Srivijaya, Siam, Luqiu, also known as the Ryukyu Islands, and Vietnam, which the Ming Dynasty would consciously avoid attempting to conquer. This approach was a significant aspect of Ming China's international relations under Hongwu's rule. He preferred not to get involved in conflicts between other countries. For example, when Vietnam invaded Champa, he didn't send military help. He just criticized Vietnam for the invasion. Hongwu advised future emperors to focus on defending their own country rather than starting wars to expand their territory. In 1395, he specifically told them not to attack places like Champa, Cambodia, or Annam, which is now Vietnam. Even though he didn't believe in aggressive expansion, a lot of Hongwu's ways of dealing with other countries were still based on what the Yuan Dynasty did before him. He took a firm approach against Japanese pirates, even threatening Japan with military action. However, many of these pirates were actually Chinese, and Hongwu's actions were mostly passive. The Ashikaga shogun in Japan didn't take Hongwu's threats too seriously. To fight piracy and the threat from the northern Yuan, Hongwu set up sea bans. These bans made private foreign trade punishable by death, destroyed boats and docks, and placed soldiers along the coast. But this plan backfired, making people angry and actually leading to more piracy. Even though the strategy had problems, piracy did go down a lot by 1568. The sea ban, which was part of Hongwu's rules for future emperors, stayed in effect for a long time. It cut off the southern farming areas from the northern military areas, except for travel along the Jinghan Canal. Even though Emperor Hongwu didn't trust some countries, he listed Japan and 13 other countries in his ancestral injunctions as places where the Ming Dynasty should not start military campaigns. He told his future descendants to keep peace with these countries. However, this policy of not starting wars was not followed by his son, the Yongle Emperor, who launched several military actions in Annam, which is now northern Vietnam. Despite Yongle's actions, Hongwu's advice to maintain peaceful relations had a lasting impact on Ming Dynasty's foreign policy for many years. Emperor Hongwu died on June 24, 1398, at the age of 69, ending his reign of 30 years. After his death, his doctors were punished, which reflects the harsh practices of the times. He was buried at the Xiaoling Mausoleum on Purple Mountain, east of Nanjing. Hongwu also revived the ancient and brutal practice of sacrificing concubines at the emperor's death. Concubines were women in a relationship with the emperor, but with a lower status than his wife. This long-abandoned practice was likely intended to remove potential threats to his chosen successor's rule. As a result, at least 38 concubines were sacrificed as part of his funeral. Zhu Yuanzhang had amassed a large family. Alongside his Empress Ma, he had numerous concubines, including Korean and Mongolian women. With them, he fathered a sizable number of children, 16 daughters and 26 sons. This large family was not uncommon for emperors of the time, reflecting the practices and norms of royal households during his era. Choosing his successor was a big issue for Emperor Hongwu. Originally, when he was the Prince of Wu, he picked his eldest son, Biao, also called the heir designate Yiwen. But as time went on, it seemed like Hongwu preferred his fourth son, Di, the Prince of Yan. Di was based in Beijing and was known for his personal qualities and military skills. In 1392, when Yiwen died, Hongwu was convinced to name Yiwen's eldest son as the next emperor instead of the Prince of Yan. This decision upset the Prince of Yan. After Hongwu died in June 1398, his grandson Yunwen became emperor, known as Huidi, or the Jianwen Emperor. But his rule ended in 1402 when the throne was taken over by the Prince of Yan, who became the Yongle Emperor. The Ming Dynasty's rule lasted 276 years, from its inception spanning from 1368 to 1644. However, all dynasties come to an end, and the Ming Dynasty was no exception. In 1644, it was replaced by the Qing Dynasty, the last imperial dynasty of China. The Qing Dynasty, established by the Manchus, ushered in a new era that lasted until the early 20th century, concluding China's long imperial history. This transition marked not just the end of the Ming, but also the beginning of a new chapter in the rich fabric of Chinese history. Historians regard Hongwu as one of China's most pivotal emperors, and note the profound impact he had on Chinese history. His ascension was meteoric. Within 11 years, he transformed from a destitute monk to China's most dominant warlord. Just 5 years after that, he ascended the throne as the emperor. a testament to his remarkable ability and the significant role he played in shaping the course of Chinese history. His sweeping reforms laid the groundwork for a prosperous, more centralized empire, influencing the course of Chinese governance for centuries. Yet, his authoritarian approach also serves as a reminder of the complexities of power. As we reflect on his life and legacy, the story of Zhu Yuanzhang stands as a powerful narrative of transformation, leadership, and the dual nature of absolute power. Thank you for joining us on this remarkable journey through history. If you found the story of the Hongwu Emperor as fascinating as we did, please hit the like button to show your support. Don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories from the past and share your thoughts in the comments below. Were you inspired by his rise to power? What do you think about his impact on Chinese history? We'd love to hear from you. Stay tuned for more intriguing tales from history. Until next time, stay curious and keep sleuthing.